Hello, everyone. To begin, we'd like to share a brief video introduction to the remarkable sculptures we'll be discussing this evening. Let's play the video. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lori Richards, and I will be your moderator this evening. I'd like to thank the Nebraska Arts Council for organizing tonight's program, the Sheldon Museum of Art hosting us, and Nebraska Public Media for recording and streaming this discussion. Our thanks to composer Nolan Schmidt, videographer Bill Gansel, and producer Matt Boss of On Pixel for bringing Nebraska's 500-mile sculpture garden to life. Created as Nebraska's contribution to the nation's bicentennial celebration, the Interstate 80 Bicentennial Sculpture Project transformed 8 interstate rest areas into one of America's first large-scale outdoor sculpture galleries. Inspired by the bicentennial theme, Horizons 76, the project looked forward and toward the future through contemporary art. Nearly 50 years later, it remains a bold example of bringing art directly to the public. Tonight, we'll explore how this visionary project came together, why it mattered then, and why it continues to matter today. I'm joined by 4 people whose experiences span the project's entire history, from its creation to its preservation. Before I introduce our panelists, I want to let you know that a biography of each is available in your program and is also available on the Nebraska Arts Council website, along with information about the I-80 project and other celebrations taking place this week throughout the state. Now, I would like to introduce our panelists to begin our discussion. Art Thompson. Hi, Art.
Hello.
Art Thompson served as executive director of the Interstate 80 Bicentennial Sculpture Project during its creation in the 1970s. He worked with artists, communities, and state leaders to bring this ambitious public art project from vision to reality and has remained one of its foremost advocates and historians. Thank you, Art. And John Raimondi. Welcome back to Nebraska. All right. John is one of the original 8 I-80 sculptors and an internationally recognized artist whose monumental works are found internationally throughout the United States and Europe. His sculpture, Erma's Desire, remains one of the signature works of Nebraska's 500-mile sculpture garden. Karen Janovy. Hey, Karen. Karen Janovy is former curator of education at the Sheldon Museum of Art and a longtime faculty member of the University of Nebraska's Museum Studies program. She worked closely with Norman Geske and has spent her career helping connect art with broader public audiences. And Dan Worth. Hey, Dan.
Hey there.
Dan Worth is an historical architect and preservation specialist who led the successful effort to list the Interstate 80 Bicentennial Sculpture Project on the National Register of Historic Places. His work has helped ensure these sculptures will be recognized and preserved for future generations. And my name is Lori Richards. I am the Director of Programming at the Mary Reitman Ross Film Theater and formerly served as Nebraska State Film Officer. I also wrote and directed a film called My Friend Norman, a documentary about Norman Geske and his vision for the Nebraska arts community, including the Interstate 80 Sculpture Project. So tonight I have a series of questions for each of you, and we'll jump around a little bit, I'm sure. But let's start with Art Thompson. Art, we've got you in sort of an area of origins and leadership to talk about.
Okay.
And here we go. How did the project begin, and what made the 500-mile sculpture garden such a bold idea?
Oh, boy.
I know, it's just a small sentence.
How it began, for everyone who was at the showing earlier, Tom Yates came to Norman with that idea for a dinosaur out on the interstate, and Norman turned that around into an idea about sculpture on the interstate. That's really how it began. And Norman had called me earlier on a different matter. He and John Nelson ran the Sheldon Film Theater, and it was getting to the point where it was too much for them to run it, so they were looking for someone to do that. And I was working at the student union, so they called me and said, do I know anybody? And I said, well, how about Dan Laidley? And so they hired Dan. And then sometime later, Norman asked Dan if he knew anyone who might want to run a sculpture project. And there you go.
Is it all about who you know?
Apparently it is, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
we'll come back to some of those points that you made. Karen, vision and public impact. Let's talk about how Norman Geske's vision and the Sheldon Art Gallery shaped the project. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Susan Long-Henry, the current director of the Sheldon, for having us here in this wonderful space, and also for accommodating our request for a reprint of Norman Geske to be placed here on the stage. The painting is way too large. I can just hear Norman saying, "How many of you have been out on that sculpture tour? Have you been out to see Erma's Desire yet?" So back to Lori's question. I could never presume to speak to Norman's vision. However, I can provide excerpts from his series on the I-80 Sculpture Project from the 2004 oral history that Barb Summer conducted for the Center for Great Plains Studies. And I'm going to skip part of it because Art will talk about that. And I quote, "So, Nebraska had $100,000 and there was a state committee appointed by the governor to decide what to do with that $100,000. Well, at that point, someone had come up with the idea of outside of Lincoln on the interstate, not only the mastodon, erecting a giant football player astride the interstate, you know, stories high with a uniform and everything, and I think they even went so far as to talking about having a restaurant in the helmet. God, it was a ridiculous idea. Everybody got a hoot out of it. Well, as I say, I can't claim that my idea came from that, but it might have. I thought, oh God, we've got to put a stop to that for one thing. So I knew Tom Yates, and he and I got together a proposal that we would commission sculptures to go at each of the rest stops along the interstate. And then he goes on to describe how they proceeded, and then he says, I thought this was a completely appropriate thing for Sheldon to do. Here was something that could be an educational project.
That's great.
What year was that?
2004. When he said that, yeah, 2004, in his oral history.
In history. So, John, a question for you.
Sure.
What was the selection process like from an artist's perspective?
I had no idea because we didn't know any of the jurors, which I think is the right step. It wasn't part of the process. I mean, the folks that were putting it together did it. Art Thompson called a couple of days afterwards, and that day he sent me a telegram, which I still have. I should have signed it over to you, saying that I was commissioned to do this. Best day of my life then.
Yeah, well, we're glad that you decided to do it, too.
Yeah, it was
Very,
thrilling.
very much so.
Yeah.
So, Dan Worth,
Yes.
what makes this project culturally and architecturally significant?
Well, as you probably know, I've been working on the effort to get the sculptures placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And we're almost there. The nomination is now in the hands of the National Park Service, and we're literally days from it being accepted and listed. So fingers crossed that maybe by the 4th of July, by the time it's rededicated, we'll have that news. But from the State Historic Preservation Office, I wanted to read something here, which kind of sums it all up, I think. Quote, all 7 extant works of the Nebraska's 500-mile sculpture garden have been nominated to the National Register of Historic Places at a national level of significance, which is remarkable, for their representation of nationally significant event, the creation of art to mark the United States bicentennial of independence. The significance also includes the process and the program, including the Artists in Residence program, as well as artistic significance. So, as you asked Art early on, why is this significant? It was totally unique, totally unique. Here's a brand new interstate system that has just been completed across our state. And Norman Geske is at the right place at the right time. And he spins an idea and creates this magnificent installation of things. Not only that, but he engages the community and the artists in the community, which was just, that adds to the whole symphony of it all. The interstate system was one of the largest public works projects in the history of our country. And at the end of the Bicentennial Commission, the U.S. American Revolution Bicentennial Commission, they claimed that Nebraska's project, the I-80 Sculpture Project, was one of the 4 best programs in that entire program. So that's the reason that they're significant. And I think they're still ringing true today. I mean, you can't go to any community in the state of Nebraska and not see public sculpture now. I have a feeling that this was a bit of prescience on Norman's part, and that just opened the floodgates, and now we see sculpture everywhere we go, which is a beautiful thing. So,
Dan, that's interesting about sculpture being in communities around the state, but I'll bet that almost all of it is figurative, not abstract. But I'd like to see it. I don't know.
Well,
could be.
it's a start anyway, right, Art?
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't complaining. I
You're
was
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
just
So,
observing.
Art, another question for you.
Well, I may not want to answer now.
Well, fine, we'll just skip over you. How were the artists selected, and what criteria guided those decisions?
Well, actually, there were 2 juries of 3 art professionals each that reviewed all the submissions. And I can't remember now if the first group winnowed it down to a smaller number and then the next group did the same, or I just don't quite remember those logistics. But anyway, there were 2 that did that. And they came up with a number of them that were what they considered to be the finalists. And we had the maquettes of those upstairs in one of the galleries, and invited people from the communities to come in and people from the Federal Highway Administration and the Department of Roads to look at them. And then how did we figure out who the finalists were? That's a good question. Anybody remember?
Well, I have a little bit of information on that.
Oh, good.
In 1974, Norman reached out to 70 sculptors and art trade press periodicals.
Mm-hmm.
Of that reach that he did, he had 121 responses, and 46 were accepted, and they were selected by, not Norman and not the
No.
Lincoln community,
Right.
by Wilder Green, director of American Federation of Arts, New York City, Thomas Mayhem, director, Denver Art Museum, and Joseph Stewart, South Dakota Memorial Arts Center at Brookings.
They were the second group of jurors.
And then the final 16 that were reviewed by Donald Goodall, Texas University of Art Museum, Stephen Prokhoff, Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago, Mary Verkantren, Associate Director, Fine Arts of University of Massachusetts at Amherst. 10 were chosen as not enough money to do all 12 rest stops was the result of the money that was not able to be raised. So 10 were chosen, 12 were chosen for 6 locations on each side of the interstate, eastbound and westbound. John, you probably remember this part of the conversation. And they were selected, the finalists were selected on their ability and willingness, whether their designs and ideas would enhance the natural character of each location. Karen, what do we know about the perception of art and how it's shifted from that time of the 70s to today?
Well, I could write a PhD dissertation on that. But I think that, for one thing, Norman had, in 1970, just 5 years before this project, he had launched the Sheldon Sculpture Gardens. And from his preface, I copied the information. The garden is, first of all, a physical enlargement of the gallery facility, but it is as well as an expansion of the interpretive function of the institution as a whole. Our hope would be that we gain a fresh view of the art of sculpture as a gauge of the American experience. So specifically, things that were happening in the 60s, for one thing, David Smith pioneered a whole new way of thinking about sculpture in using the welding torch. And when we think about how sculpture had been prior to those years, think the Daniel Chester French statue on the west steps of the Capitol, and then on the west steps of the Sheldon, we have David Smith's superstructure on 4, a totally different kind of presentation. So I think the idea of Norman planting these sculptures all over the community provided access and exposure, and educational opportunities for people to begin to think about abstraction in art as well as sculpture as a whole.
He was quite, and I will use the word visionary in my opinion.
Definitely visionary.
John, how did you approach the design for Erma's Desire?
Well, at the time in the early 70s, my work was very geometric and not figurative at all. And I'd always wanted to do a piece about my mom because a million reasons. The first reason is she wanted me, and she made that clear every day of my life. And yet, she let me be me. That's pretty difficult. And even in today's world, it's very difficult. I have a 35-year-old son, and I have a difficult time letting him be him. It happens. And I created this non-representational piece, knowing that I had seen the site. I flew out here and looked at rest areas, which you saw in the film. I mean, it's a vista. So my original design, you'll even see it in the drawing, spanned Interstate 80. So you drove under it, you know? And the first reaction, of course, you know, politically, oh, it would be crazy, people will stop to take a picture. You know, we didn't have phones for pictures, but with a real camera, and would cause accidents. But that was my intention, of something that monumental. And then when it comes to money, I mean, it would have been, even then, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. But that was just my idea. And so this fit within the evolution of what my work looked like then. That's all.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about what it was like to work in the community? Once you got to Nebraska?
Once they were approved, sure. But I mean, at first it was pretty tough because a lot of people thought this was sexual, just because of the title, Erma's Desire. My mother's desire was her sons would be self-sufficient and would be happy. It had nothing to do with sex. And I went to the Rotary clubs and Lions clubs and schools and churches. All the churches had me in for their coffee. And I spoke to people from my heart and told them why I was doing this. No one ever said anything bad about it at that point. It was pretty simple.
Yeah, that's great. Dan Worth, how do the sculptures reflect the forward-looking Horizon 76 theme?
Boy. Well, as we all know, at least those of us sitting on the stage here, the 60s and the 70s were a pretty turbulent time. Vietnam War, social unrest, inequality, civil rights, all of that. And I think we were all just ready for something better to happen. And the wishful part of me is thinking, and Art could probably correct me on why the committee chose the Horizons theme, but I think we were just ready to turn the page and get on with something better. And that led the direction to non-representational or modern sculpture, something that wasn't traditional. So I don't know if that's correct or not, Art.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
That's fine. It's good. It's good. It's very good.
We'll talk later.
Sure. Art, how was the project funded, and what challenges, political or public, did it face? I know.
It was funded by people who gave money. I think there was it 100,000 or 200,000 from the State Bicentennial Commission? 100. And then the committee that Woody Varner put together raised the rest, which amounted to about total 500,000. Originally, it was supposed to be more like 700,000 or 800,000, and we would have had 2 more sculptures. But because of the delay with the legislature, excuse me, which lasted for months, fundraising just dried up, and then all of a sudden we were in a hurry to get everything done. So there were limits to what we could raise at that point.
Yeah. And Karen, how does this project continue to serve as an educational and public art model?
Well, this would go back to what public art actually is. And then director of the Nebraska Arts Council, Suzanne Wise, gave me a wonderful definition of it, which I can read. Public art includes any work displayed in a public space with the goal of being accessible to everyone. Public art can be in any medium, including integrated architectural or landscape work. Public art is often site-specific, being created in response to the place in which it resides, and may address specific historical, social, or environmental concerns. So the whole concept of public art coming into its own, and when we think about that definition, and communities all over the nation had begun to do public art. Think J. Doe in Omaha, and think Cows in Chicago, and in Lincoln we have not only the Public Art Lincoln Committee, but we also had hands, we had stars, we had light bulbs, and then we had bicycles, thanks to Liz Shea McCoy and others around the community, to provide accessibility in that definition, continuing to provide additional information and accessibility to public art. You can walk all the way around a piece of sculpture. You can put your hands on it, as opposed to what you can do in a museum. Stay behind the wire, so stand back a little bit, but go out there, and in the film that we just saw, write 76, 77 on the sculpture, or have a little, as Norman said, have a little cuddle in the sculpture. So the whole concept of public art coming into being and providing accessibility.
There's in Lincoln, there's Tem and Ta, which are now on the
Right, on the mall.
15th
on the mall. Yeah, but they were originally at the old City Hall.
Old City Hall.
And Jack Campbell led that effort. And that was happening about the same time, I think, that we were working on the sculpture project.
Well, and going back to Norman's installation of those sculptures on the mall,
Oh, yeah.
which was, he was a visionary, but he wanted access to public sculptures. He wanted access for people to have an experience and to have some education going along with it.
Was it difficult for him to get that done, to put Sheldon sculptures on the city property?
I can't speak to that. I don't know how he
either.
did that, but when he installed that
Sculpture exhibition, 1970.
American sculpture, not only there were 174 pieces in that collection, not only inside the Sheldon, but out in the sculpture garden, those that were dedicated initially, and then putting those out. I doubt that there was any resistance to that at that point in time.
I don't know.
On the mall? Who was in charge of
Was that before the sculpture project?
That was before the I-80
Yes.
sculpture. It was
Yes.
1970.
Yes, 70.
So they were saving up resistance for
Yes,
the...
yes. Saving up all that resistance, yes, you're right. Sorry.
But you know, there is one point about this that we're talking around it, and so I don't mind getting right to the meat of it, no pun intended, because we're in Nebraska. Art is very political, and right now the government has prevented National Public Radio
Yep.
and National Public Television from telling the truth.
Yep.
We can't let that happen. That's not what America is about. That's not what the bicentennial is about. That's not what celebrating our freedom. That was really brave what Norman was doing then, and we have to just stay on track and let this happen.
Yeah.
I mean, this couldn't happen in Russia. Any of the communist country, could we do this? Could we have a voice? No. So it's wonderful artists are
Yeah,
doing
I
this.
wanted to, you brought that point up very clearly in the film that we just saw at the Ross,
Oh,
when you
thanks.
were standing before the Hall County Commission. And that every time I see that frame or that clip, it rings so true, because, you know, what a great thing to have. And that's why we celebrate the Declaration of Independence, is to be able to stand toe-to-toe and talk about something like a piece of art and have a civil discourse about it. That's so important, so important.
Well, I don't have any other questions right now. I have a few more, just a few. That's great. It's great. I love it. John, I'm going to go back to you for a second. Talking about your art in the community and when you go into communities, because you had done something before this commission, correct? That was public?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Portland, Maine, Boston City Hall.
Several things. So when you were looking at those spaces and then ultimately in this situation, how was your choice of design and what you were doing affected by your...
Well, I could do the biggest sculpture I've ever done because of the site. I mean, everything else was architectural and, you know, it had to be rather relatively confined. But this was so open. Why do you think I wanted to span the highway? I still do want to span the highway. If Warren Buffett would listen.
There was a lot of controversy about the whole I-80 sculpture activity, art.
Oh, boy.
And as was pointed out earlier today, it was suggested that maybe that controversy was positive for the whole program, for the artists, perhaps. Can you speak to that, please?
At the time, I wouldn't have thought so. It was painful, having people so upset about what we were doing. And I took it personally, which I shouldn't have, but I did. I remember one time we went on vacation, and the place we were staying, there was a couple from North Platte there. And when I found that out, my heart just sunk, because I didn't want to talk to them about the sculpture, but I knew that's what was going to happen, and it did. But it was okay. We got through that. I forgot actually what the question
Well,
was.
it's just the controversy and how controversy sometimes it doesn't always have to be negative or lead down the wrong path. It became an opportunity perhaps for some of the artists, or maybe
I think so.
Yeah, particularly Erma's Desire, the name of the sculpture.
Yeah, I think while we're on that, I have to ask you a question. You could have named it Erma,
No, I had done
but you named
earlier.
it Erma's Desire.
Right. I was very specific because I had friends. I grew up in a neighborhood where, very, very fortunately, it was diverse. But this was only from the 10 years, 5th grade and older. I had friends who lived on the same street. Actually, our pediatrician lived behind us, Dr. William Glaser, who was a great doctor, compassionate. Empathy that was his billboard. But he and his wife made very clear that all their children, they had 4 children, would become doctors because they believed in that. But he pushed it to the point on his youngest son, who was my younger brother's best friend, who was born with a perfect physique, even though he'd never gone to a gym. There was no such thing as gyms back then. He was a marathon runner. And they loved him, but that's not what they wanted for him. He ended up committing suicide. He was a beautiful man. So I saw what the reverse of what I had in my backyard. And I realized, I had the best mom in the world, and dad. And they loved each other, and they showed us they showed us how to be a husband, how to be in love with the person that you're going to marry and spend the rest of your life with, just by example. And funny, really funny. I mean, not just, I was blessed, still am.
What were some of the earlier things you did as a youngster when you started to experience art in your life?
Made model cars, model airplanes that would fly around. And then I graduated into trains. Trains are very expensive, though, HO trains, and, ridiculous. And then I finally made cars. Even before I had my license, I had a car, because my uncle had a car I didn't want, a Fiat, an Italian car. And it was metal. And I could change the way it looked. I could change just by colors, but I could change the way it looks by changing the shape and the form. So by the time I was in high school and had a license, I also had a 1939 Ford that I bought for $50 from a farmer in Billerica, north of Boston, towed it home, and there was a part of a tree or a branch was growing out of the top of it. And my mother was at the window she always sat at to see the cars drive by with my youngest on her lap. And she started crying because she thought I was really crazy at this point. To me, it was beautiful. I didn't see it the way she saw it. But yeah, it was fab. And so the cars have been an incredible thing. And when you think of cars and how beautiful they are, and the colors and the paint, and it's fantastic. I love it. Still do.
We're blessed in Nebraska to have not only Erma's Desire as part of the Interstate 80 Bicentennial Project and the 500-mile sculpture garden, but we have a couple of other sculptures.
Well, you have a real sexual X-rated piece.
Of yours.
They really do. Athleta, for those of you who have ever seen it, and those who don't, I was commissioned by the college in 1990 to do a piece to put out in front of the new Sports Coliseum. And it was the first time in my life as a sculptor that making objects that when I entered this competition, I did not have a model. I had an idea. And I had my friend who was a writer, Mark Van Tilburg, he was at Iowa Workshop then. I had him do a one-page proposal. If I was commissioned, this is what I will do. It was a big chance, because I was supposed to provide a model. I didn't know what it was going to look like. So I said, I didn't say it, my friend the writer said it. John Janovy would know how to say it better than anyone in the world, but if you commission me and you trust me, I will photograph. I had a wildlife crazy camera then. I had 4 seconds per frame. Tick, 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 tick. One frame. Tick, 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 tick. I would ask students that were in baseball player, swimmers, basketball, volleyball, football. I would have them doing their practice, of course, not competition, and I'd take pictures of them. And I believe it's up now at the museum in Kearney. And then I scotch taped them together. And I could see the motion. And there is an aesthetic moment in every sport that I saw anyway. So I tried to capture that. And in drawing, And I knew in 2 seconds what the sculpture was going to look like, because let's face it, their bodies are beautiful. They're magnificent. They glisten. They're toned. It's the epitome of what a body should look like. It's just amazing. So, and I used to love to tease the kids in school about this, because I warned them, this is X-rated. And one person said, did you ever draw them naked? No, I only took pictures of them in their clothes. In my mind, they were all naked and gorgeous. And that's what it's about. And the piece is a bouquet of flowers. And the architect and I created the base of it to look like where kids can sit. It's actually a bench, to look like a plinth on a trophy. And it was a great project. I love it. And it was 100% artist in residence program.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit too. The piece that you referred to is at University of Nebraska at Kearney.
Right.
Athleta, in front of the
The sports
sports
coliseum.
complex out there.
It's a Latin word that means male and female athletes, athleta. I was doing things with Latin because it sounded a little more impressive, but.
It has a lot of energy to it.
Yeah, well, that's it.
It's
So do
just
they.
incredible energy
Yeah.
to that piece.
Thank you.
And it isn't because of the way you made it with taking all those photographs of the athletes in motion. And then you distilled it down into 5 or 6 parts maybe, or 4 or 5 parts that
Yeah.
are actively involved.
There was a little bit of, some of the athletes made it very clear to me, not in classroom, but I used to run around the campus all the time. I never walked. Everywhere I went, I ran. And groups of basketball players would see me and make a little bit of fun, maybe because they knew I was gay and I was doing things. I looked over at them like, grow up, Well, I had the president of the university behind me. What are you going to do? But other than that, it was just stupendous. I mean, really, I have friends still from there.
Oh,
1990.
That's great. Karen, can you talk a little bit about the Artist in Residence program?
Well, I was just going to pick up on that, because the significance of that Artist in Residence program, which was relatively new, I think, in our country. But for Norman to say, okay, we'll send people, the artists go into the communities, they'll live there. What could be more
Dangerous.
wonderful, dangerous? What could be more beneficial, though, than having students, and some of that we saw in the film, teachers taking their students, working with them, working around, and I know in one community, I think it was York, took over a high school studio, and the students were there working with those artists nonstop all the time. What could be a better kind of an educational project?
Karen, I have to talk about this because the interpreter's right there. I have to do this, I'm sorry. But National Endowment for the Arts in Washington, D.C. Gave me a grant in the very early 80s to become the first artist in residence in the history of the country in a vocational school. Well, in New England, vocational school isn't looked at the way it is here, And these were kids that were hard-scrabble kids, and a couple of gals. And I had a tremendous time there. I built 3 big sculptures, and one of them is in front of the Button Museum in Ohio with them. But here's the best part. So years later, the state of Maine has an artist in residence program. And my boyfriend at the time was a wonderful painter and a great writer. So I proposed him to go to the School of the Deaf on Baxter Island, which is just outside of Portland, Maine. And he was the first artist in residence ever to be in a deaf school. And he was off the charts, so he learned sign language. It took me years, and he learned it in a matter of months fluently. And they had a blast with him, because deaf people know that you're from the hearing world. And that's who they want to listen to, no pun intended. So it was a great experience. We loved it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of artists in residence.
Yeah, I could see in the film this afternoon too, your relationship with the students and how they learned perfection, your expectations.
But the other thing, women were just coming into the market, of industry. And there was a lot of resistance to that. Not if I was there. You know, I backed them up really quick because, first of all, imagine how brave it was for her to be part of this group of 10 boys that have never had sex yet. And here she is, high school, and here she is, a better welder than all of them, but they're ridiculing her because she's a woman. You know, that is really sick. It happens in the art world. I mean, one of my favorite, no, I don't even go there.
So let's talk a little bit about the role of public art in shaping identity and place. Art?
Oh boy, I was hoping you'd ask someone else that question.
Karen?
Public art shaping identity?
Yeah, public art helping to shape identity and place, much like, I guess, maybe architecture helps shape identity.
Well, think of the
and
Chicago
place.
Picasso. I mean, Picasso
Exactly.
never, ever once came to the United States of America. He gave that sculpture to the city of Chicago.
Or the bean.
Well,
Where you
that's
could
a
think
whole
of
different thing.
a number of the same kind of instances where Klaus Oldenburg, for example, the
Yeah, but
shuttlecock.
Picasso, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
Chicago.
exactly.
Where did that work? How did that work?
Exactly.
And
So-
it's one of the great pieces of public art, I
Public art
think.
and identity, it goes together.
But I also like in Chicago, if you've never seen it, it's well worth seeing. It's at the GSA building, Oldenburg, 98-foot tall, baseball bat. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful piece. He and I shared the same studio.
Okay.
Lippincott in Connecticut. They're no longer in business. But yeah, no, that really, there's identification with
Yeah.
art and architecture and a civilization and a community. Yeah, it's fabulous.
Did you get a chance? What was it like when you've been around Lincoln here the last 24 hours? Or Omaha? You
Oh, my
landed
God,
in
yeah.
Omaha and drove in?
The
or-
development is out of this world. I mean, it's just, I can't, it's the architecture. I wish I knew the name of the building, but I went by it twice today. It's slaty granite, very, very minimal. Oh my God, it's
On
such a
campus
beautiful
here?
building. I never saw a sign.
Probably a new music building.
It was
The new
just,
music?
I love the architecture. It's just, that was never here when I was here 50 years ago. We still had wagons.
Are you looking forward to going out to seeing your other pieces that are in Nebraska
I
and
can't
Kearney?
wait. I
And
can't, they've moved 15 tons of bronze they moved to answer the cranes. And they did a video of it. You can see it. It's fantastic the way they did it. Middle of the night, 4 a.m. They moved it, I think, 1.5 miles, but it took 4 hours because they could only go 2 miles an hour, the engineers said.
In
I-
Omaha.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it in its new location. Some friends that we were with today said it looks much better than when it was near the garage. It kind of flies there, whereas the garage was, afterthought of where it went.
Needed some
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, and I'm going to see Athleta too. Maybe get someone to agree to polish it up so it looks like a shiny penny again. So that's the advantage of bronze. You can make it anything from black to white to polished to dull.
how is it that you were attracted to iron and steel and metal? Is it the car theme in your life?
Yeah, I think it was believing in myself that my voice needed to be heard. Heard, my voice.
Yeah. That's a powerful
Every,
medium.
name an
for sure.
artist that doesn't truly believe that about themselves. They wouldn't exist. I mean, from Barbra Streisand all the way. You think Bruce Springsteen questions what he's doing? I don't. He's doing great American stuff.
What do you think this project would be like today in 2020?
It wouldn't happen. The politics would never allow it.
You think if there would
That's
be
not
dictated,
funny, but-
or you'd have to do it this way or no way, or this way or the highway, so to speak?
Yeah.
kind of thing?
It'd be tough to get the funding. I mean, it was tough to get, this funding, and we still never had enough to do it properly, but it took.
Well, Norman and Tom Yates and I went to see Governor Exon about the project. And Tom talked about that in the film we saw earlier. And the governor, well, he let us in, for one thing, and let us talk to him about it. I'm not sure today that our current governor would be interested in a discussion.
That's just
So-
the thing. The Kennedy Center, just think of what the Kennedys did
Yeah.
for the, and we had an administration that tried, everyone knows what he tried to do, and thank God he didn't get to do it. Yeah, so, very tough
Yeah.
political situation. That's why I think that more women should run for elected office. I don't care if it's a post office thing, because they listen. They want to talk. They don't want to fight. Sorry.
Omaha sculpture, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Dan?
I think she wanted you to talk about the sculpture in Omaha.
Oh, Dance with the Cranes.
Yeah.
No, that's a very political piece. Nobody knows it, but it is. I mean, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a celebration of not just wildlife and all those things that I love, but it's homage to the indigenous people. And look at what they did. Oh my God. And they taught us how to live here. Anyway, now their conversation.
Definitely. Dan, do you have any comments that you'd like to say in your little wrap-up moment with us?
Wrap-up moment.
Well, we're not quite at wrap-up, but I thought I'd give you each a chance to make a comment.
Oh, well, I'm very grateful to three people on this podium with me, Art, my wife Lori, and Karen, for being part of our little group to raise some money and hire consultants to get the sculptures listed on the National Register of Historic Places. We've been talking about it for a long time. We lost a roadway confluence. That was the first step. The second step was a while ago when Department of Transportation wanted the state to sign over an exception to do anything they wanted to along the interstate. And one of our past preservation officers said, no, these sculptures are something we need to deal with. And he forced the issue. And that has been in the background, ready to go. And now, because it's the 50th anniversary of the sculptures, it makes them qualify for the National Register. You have to be 50 years or older in order to qualify for the National Register. So the timing is right. And so I want to thank those folks, along with Suzanne Weiss, and Kristen Momaya for stepping up and helping with that. We had a couple of goals when we started. One was to raise the awareness of the sculptures through this effort. The second one was through whatever research we did and documentation we did, was to make that available to everyone in the state. And we're trying to do that. We've been doing that with the State Historical Society, with the Arts Council, and others. So I'm excited to do that again. And then lastly, the National Register gives a bit of a template to people behind us on how to deal with these sculptures, that they are, in many instances, site-specific. They were planned, responded to the site, and it gives the cultural resources folks at the Department of Transportation now a little more leverage on how to deal with the sculptures and ensures their conservation into the future. So we're very happy about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a number of your sponsors and funders in the audience tonight too, which is great.
Yeah.
We thank all of them as well. Karen, do you have any moments you'd like to share?
I had just a couple of things going back a little bit to this whole concept of public art. This project has been called a museum without walls. And museums really serve 5 basic functions. They collect stuff, they exhibit it, they interpret it or provide education, they do research about it, and they preserve it for future generations. And is not that exactly what this whole sculpture project is doing? And I guess my final word to you would be, Norman talking about how the garden is first a physical enlargement of the gallery facility or the museum facility, but an expansion of the interpretation. So his vision was that of education. And I would say to you, so when are you going to get in your car and drive out to see Erma's Desire? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Arthur?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm trying to think which one to mention. Well, first, Dan, you're the one who put this whole idea together and made it happen, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, my thanks too.
I was thinking back to Hans van de Bovenkamp's piece, which is no longer there. As a result of that, I met with the Department of Roads, and Suzanne Wise helped me. I can't remember if we went together, but anyway, we worked together on a document that we later submitted to the Department of Roads, which I think Mike, you still work off that document with the Department of Roads?
We just got an update.
Oh, good. Okay, well, there you are. So that's good.
Great.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that for me, it was a life-changing experience. It was 3 years. Makes me emotional.
That's what art does.
3 years with Norman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was good.
What a treat.
Yeah.
Great. Johnny?
I'm just so happy to be back here. It's fabulous.
Oh, we're happy to have you.
I can't wait to see the collection at the Sheldon and go out to Kearney.
Great.
It's going to be terrific.
Great. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. But before we do, I want to thank our panelists and to remind you to visit the Nebraska Arts Council website for all the information and videos about the I-80 project and other art talks and celebrations taking place this week throughout the state. Regarding the maquette before us, this piece, Erma's Desire, it is called a Gaussian splat. The Nebraska Arts Council commissioned the Johnny Carson Center for Emerging Media Arts to create this Gaussian splat of all the sculptures, and that, with the help of augmented reality, people can see now in full scale the missing sculpture, Roadway Confluence, initially installed at the westbound Sydney rest stop. Information about the sculptures, the project, and the 50th anniversary is all available by going to the Nebraska Arts Council website, where you will find a QR code on the stage. I thought we might have one, but maybe it's going to be, oh, here it is, down here, the QR code, to give you direction on how to access this information. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening, and thanks again to the Nebraska Arts Council, the Sheldon Museum of Art, the Nebraska Public Media folks, Nancy Finken, and all of the crew here. We really appreciate that. And to each of you, I'm sure our paths will cross again as we explore the I-80 sculptures on Nebraska's horizon in celebration of the 1976 Bicentennial and America 250 activities. Please stay around. We're going to go off air, but please stay around and we can have a little Q&A. If you have something for John, just stay seated. If you don't, get up and move away quietly. And thank you so much for everyone for being here tonight. Thank you.